The gymnasium of the Pinewood Community Center smelled of floor wax, stale popcorn, and desperation. It was a Saturday in mid-October, and the air outside was crisp with the promise of autumn. But inside, the atmosphere was suffocatingly warm. Balloons in primary colors, red, blue, yellow, bobbed listlessly against the metal rafters, tethered to plastic tables that formed a chaotic maze across the basketball court. This was the Fall Family Match event, a bureaucratic euphemism for an adoption fair. It was a place where the state's forgotten children were put on display like wares at a flea market, hoping that someone, anyone, would see past the files and the trauma and offer them a home. Prospective parents wandered the aisles, clutching oversized pamphlets. They smiled nervous, hopeful smiles. Most of the children, seasoned veterans of the foster care system, knew exactly what to do. They were performing. An 8-year-old boy near the entrance was juggling soccer balls, laughing loudly every time a couple walked by. A pair of twin sisters in matching pink dresses sat coloring furiously, making sure to show their drawings to anyone who paused. They were selling the best versions of themselves, projecting joy and health, hiding the scars and the nightmares because they knew that people wanted easy, people wanted happy. But in the far corner of the gym, in the shadow of the bleachers where the fluorescent lights didn't quite reach, sat Ellie. She was 7 years old, though she looked much younger. Malnutrition and chronic stress had stunted her growth, leaving her frail and bird-like. She wore a faded denim dress that was 2 sizes too big, the fabric swallowing her small frame. Unlike the other children, Ellie wasn't performing. She wasn't smiling. She sat on a metal folding chair, her legs dangling inches above the scuffed floor, staring intently at the Velcro straps of her worn-out sneakers. She was an island of silence in a sea of noise. To her right, a social worker named Mrs. Gable checked her watch for the 10th time that hour. Mrs. Gable was a kind woman, but she was exhausted. She had 50 cases, and Ellie was the hardest. Not because Ellie was bad. She was terrified. The file on the table next to Ellie was thick, a tragic novel written in clinical terms. Severe neglect, selective mutism, generalized anxiety disorder. Multiple placements failed. Ellie, sweetie, Mrs. Gable whispered, leaning down. There's a nice couple coming this way. Look up, okay? Just for a second. Ellie didn't move. She didn't blink. She simply curled her fingers tighter into the hem of her dress, her knuckles turning white. The couple approached. They looked kind. The woman had a soft face and was wearing a floral blouse. She smiled at Ellie. Hi there, she said, her voice dripping with the exaggerated sweetness adults use for frightened animals. I like your dress. Is blue your favorite color? Ellie remained frozen. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. The woman's smile faltered. She looked at her husband, then at Mrs. Gable, and finally down at the thick file on the table. She's shy, Mrs. Gable offered weakly. I see, the husband said. He didn't look at Ellie. He looked at the exit. We're looking for, well, we have a dog and we need a child who is comfortable with high energy. She seems very fragile. We don't think it's a match, the woman added quickly, backing away. Good luck, though. They walked away, moving toward the boy juggling the soccer balls. It happened again, and again. For 3 hours, people drifted by, cast a glance at the statue-still girl in the corner, and moved on to easier options. Ellie was invisible. She was a ghost, haunting her own life. Near the entrance of the gym, leaning against the doorframe as if ready to bolt at any second, stood Logan Reeve. Logan didn't fit in here. The other men wore polo shirts and khakis. Logan wore a charcoal t-shirt that clung to a torso built by years of carrying heavy rucksacks through mountains, and dark jeans. He had a short, military regulation haircut that was growing out just enough to look messy. A jagged, pale scar ran from his jawline down to his collarbone, a souvenir from a mission in a place he wasn't allowed to talk about. He wasn't here because he wanted a child. He was here because his therapist, Dr. Eris, had told him he needed to reconnect with humanity. You're drowning in your own head, Logan, Eris had said. Go to the event. You don't have to adopt. Just look. See that life goes on. See that there is a future. Logan felt like an imposter. He was 34 years old, a retired Navy SEAL with a medical discharge and a heavy conscience. He had spent his adult life dismantling threats, taking things apart. He didn't know the first thing about building something up. He scanned the room, his eyes moving with the tactical precision of a sniper, sector by sector. He saw the desperation in the adults' eyes, the frantic performance of the children. It made his chest tight. It felt fake. Then his gaze landed on the corner. He stopped. The background noise of the gym, the squeaking sneakers, the chatter, the static of the PA system, seemed to fade. He watched the little girl in the oversized dress. He watched a family walk up to her, look at her paperwork, and walk away without even saying hello. He saw the way the girl's shoulders slumped, a microscopic movement that screamed of a defeat so total it crushed his heart. Logan pushed off the wall. He didn't know why, but his feet were moving. He navigated through the crowd, ignoring the cheerful volunteers trying to hand him flyers. He moved with a predator's grace, silent and efficient, until he was standing 10 feet away from her. He watched as the social worker, Mrs. Gable, stood up to take a phone call, stepping a few feet away, leaving the girl alone. Ellie looked up. For the first time all day, she lifted her head. She looked around the room, her large, dark eyes scanning the happy families, the laughing children, the parents holding hands with their new sons and daughters. She looked at the empty space in front of her, and then she whispered it. It was so quiet, a mere breath of air that no one else could have heard it over the din of the gymnasium. But Logan, trained to hear the snap of a twig in a windstorm, heard it clearly. No one wants me. It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact, delivered with a heartbreaking acceptance. Logan felt a physical blow to his chest. It resonated with something deep inside him. The dark, cold emptiness he felt every time he walked into his own silent house. No one wants me either, he thought. I'm broken. You're broken. He didn't think. He didn't consult a plan. He just stepped forward. His shadow fell over her. Ellie flinched, pulling her knees up to her chest, bracing for rejection or a scolding. Logan slowly knelt on one knee. His movements were deliberate and slow, telegraphing safety. When he knelt, he was eye level with her. He didn't smile. A fake smile would have been an insult to the pain in her eyes. He kept his face neutral, calm, like the surface of a deep lake. I heard you, Logan said. His voice was gravelly, unused to softness, but it was steady. Ellie's eyes widened. She stared at the scar on his neck, then at his eyes. They were gray, like a storm cloud, but they weren't angry. They looked tired. Just like hers. You said no one wants you. Logan continued, ignoring Mrs. Gable, who was rushing back, looking alarmed at the large, scarred man talking to her most fragile charge. Logan held Ellie's gaze. He didn't look at the file. He didn't look at the social worker. He looked only at the human being in front of him. You're wrong, Logan said. Ellie stopped breathing for a second. I'm Logan, he said, extending a hand. He didn't reach for her. He just laid his large, calloused hand palm up on the space between them, an offering. And I think you're exactly who I was looking for. Mrs. Gable arrived, breathless. Sir? Sir, is there something I can help you with? This is Ellie. She has special needs regarding communication and... Logan stood up, towering over the social worker, but his demeanor remained calm. He looked at Mrs. Gable, then back down at Ellie, who was staring at his hand as if it were a strange alien object. I know, Logan said softly. I'm not looking for someone to talk to. I'm looking for someone to be silent with. He looked at Ellie again. I want you. The words hung in the air. Simple. Absolute. For the first time in 7 years, a tiny spark lit up in the darkness of Ellie's eyes. She didn't take his hand. Not yet. But she uncurled her fingers from her dress. She gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. It was the beginning of a mission Logan hadn't prepared for, a mission without a briefing or an extraction plan. But for the first time since he left the service, he had an objective. The process was faster than Logan expected, mostly because the system was desperate to place older children with behavioral challenges, and Logan, despite his single status, looked good on paper. Honorable discharge, government pension, background check, clean as a whistle, a large home fully paid for. Mrs. Gable had rushed the paperwork, perhaps fearing Logan would change his mind. 2 weeks later, the day came. The drive from the group home to Logan's house was excruciatingly quiet. Ellie sat in the back seat of his black SUV, clutching a small, battered trash bag that contained everything she owned. 2 shirts, a pair of worn pants, and a headless plastic doll. Logan drove with both hands on the wheel, his eyes scanning the road, checking mirrors. Old habits. He glanced in the rearview mirror. Ellie was staring out the window, watching the landscape change from the gray concrete of the city to the vibrant greens and browns of the rural countryside. Logan lived in isolation. His house was a converted farmhouse at the end of a 2-mile gravel driveway, surrounded by dense woods and bordered by a creek. It was his fortress of solitude. Now he was bringing an intruder in. What have I done? The thought nagged at him. I can't even take care of a houseplant. I have nightmares that make me wake up screaming. What business do I have raising a child? But then he remembered her whisper. No one wants me. It was the anchor that kept him steady. He couldn't leave her there. They pulled up to the house. It was a sturdy structure, wood and stone, with a large porch. It looked peaceful, but to Logan, it usually felt like a prison. "We're here," Logan said. He got out and opened the back door. Ellie didn't move. She looked at the house, then at the deep woods surrounding it. Her eyes darted rapidly, left, right, up at the tree line, assessing threats. Logan noticed it immediately. She's scanning the perimeter, he realized. Just like I do. It was heartbreaking. A 7-year-old shouldn't have that kind of situational awareness. That was a soldier's trait, born of survival. "It's safe," Logan said, keeping his distance. "No one comes out here unless I invite them. The perimeter is secure." He used military terminology without thinking, but strangely, it seemed to calm her. It was definitive language. Ellie climbed out, clutching her trash bag to her chest like a shield. They walked inside. The house was clean, minimalist, and utterly devoid of warmth. No pictures on the walls, no throw pillows, just functional furniture. "This is your room," Logan said, leading her to a guest room on the ground floor. He had spent the last week frantically trying to make it look like a child's room. He had bought a soft yellow bedspread and a small desk. It still looked like a hotel room, but he had tried. Ellie stood in the doorway. She didn't step in. "You don't like it?" Logan asked, panic rising in his chest. Ellie looked at the bed. It was high off the ground. She looked under it. Then she looked at the closet door, which was slightly ajar. She walked over, closed the closet door firmly, and backed away. She placed her trash bag on the floor, but she didn't unpack. She sat on the floor, her back against the wall, facing the door. "Okay," Logan said, scratching the back of his neck. "Floor is fine. The floor is solid." Dinner was a disaster of awkwardness. Logan grilled chicken and vegetables, simple, nutritious fuel. He set a plate for her at the kitchen island. Ellie ate quickly, hunched over her plate, one arm guarding the food as if someone might snatch it away. Food insecurity, Logan noted mentally. She's used to fighting for scraps. "There's more," he said gently, pushing the serving platter slightly toward her. "You don't have to guard it. In this house, the food never runs out. That's a standing order." Ellie paused. She looked at him, confused. Adults usually scolded her for eating too fast or for having bad manners. This giant man was speaking to her like she was a fellow soldier in a mess hall. She slowly lowered her guarding arm. That night, Logan couldn't sleep. He sat on his porch, staring into the darkness of the woods. The silence of the house felt different now. It wasn't empty silence, it was a loaded silence. There was another heartbeat in the house. He went inside to check on her around 2 a.m. The door to her room was open. The bed was empty. The yellow comforter was untouched. Panic spiked in Logan's veins. He moved instantly, adrenaline flooding his system. He checked the bathroom, empty. The kitchen, empty. Then he saw it. In the living room, behind the large leather sofa, there was a small bundle. Ellie had taken the blanket from the bed and curled up in the tight, defenseless space between the couch and the wall. She was asleep, but her sleep was restless. Her face was pinched in distress. She was hiding. Even in her sleep, she was hiding. Logan watched her for a long time. He felt a tear track through the dust on his cheek. He went to the hall closet, grabbed his own heavy wool blanket, and returned to the living room. He didn't wake her. He didn't try to move her to the proper bed. Instead, Logan lay down on the rug, on the other side of the sofa. He positioned himself between her hiding spot and the front door. A human barricade. "I've got the watch, Ellie," he whispered into the dark. "Sleep. I've got the watch." For the first time in years, Logan fell asleep without a nightmare. The first week was a lesson in patience. Logan treated Ellie not as a child, but as a traumatized survivor, because that's what she was. He didn't force hugs. He didn't demand conversation. He established a routine, knowing that routine created safety. 0700, wake up. 0730, breakfast. 0800, walk the perimeter, a walk around the garden. Ellie began to anticipate the schedule. The predictability seemed to lower her cortisol levels. She stopped hunching her shoulders quite so much. But there were cracks in the facade. On Tuesday, a delivery truck rumbled up the gravel driveway. It was just a package from Amazon, new clothes Logan had ordered for her. But the sound of the heavy diesel engine sent Ellie into a catatonic state. They were in the kitchen. As the truck approached, Ellie dropped the glass of water she was holding. It shattered. She didn't scream. She scrambled under the kitchen table, pressing herself into a ball, her hands over her ears, her eyes squeezed shut. Logan waved the driver away, leaving the package on the porch, and hurried back inside. He found her under the table, trembling so violently her teeth chattered. "Ellie," he said calmly, sitting on the floor a few feet away. "Target is gone. It was just logistics. Supply drop." She didn't uncurl. "Ellie, look at me." She opened her eyes. They were filled with a terror that went beyond simple fear. It was recognition. She knew that sound. "Bad men?" Logan asked. It was a guess. Ellie nodded slowly. "Big truck?" She nodded again. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out and traced a shape on the floor with her finger. It wasn't just a truck. She drew a circle with a cross inside it. Logan frowned. "A symbol?" He memorized it. "Okay," he said. "No trucks allowed on the property anymore. I'll put a sign at the gate." Later that afternoon, Logan was in his study, looking up the symbol she had drawn. It was generic, could be anything. A target, a religious icon, a brand? He couldn't place it. He opened her file again, the one Mrs. Gable had given him. Mother died of overdose. Father unknown. Placed in foster care at age 3. Ran away from 2 homes. Found wandering on a highway at age 6. There were gaps, massive, gaping holes in her history. Where was she between the time she ran away and the time she was found? That was nearly 6 months unaccounted for. The file said homeless. But a 6-year-old doesn't survive on the streets alone for 6 months without help or captivity. Logan felt a cold chill. He looked out the window toward the garden where Ellie was sitting. She wasn't playing. She was sitting perfectly still, watching the woods. Suddenly Ellie stood up. She took a step back, her eyes locked on the tree line about 100 yards away. Logan followed her gaze. The sun was setting, casting long, deceptive shadows. But Logan's vision was 20/20, honed by years of scanning for snipers in the mountains of Afghanistan. There, at the edge of the forest, partially obscured by a thick oak tree, something reflected the dying sunlight. It was a glint. Glass. Or metal. Binoculars. Someone was watching the house. Logan didn't panic. He shifted gears. He was no longer Logan, the struggling adoptive father. He was Chief Petty Officer Reeve. He walked out to the porch, moving casually, pretending he hadn't seen anything. He stretched his arms, yawning, but his eyes were mapping the distance, the windage, the cover. "Ellie," he called out, his voice light and breezy. "Chow time. Let's go inside. I'm making tacos." Ellie looked at him, then back at the woods. She sensed his tension, despite his act. She ran to him, burying her face in his leg. Logan ushered her inside and locked the heavy deadbolt. He moved her away from the windows. "Go wash up," he said. As soon as she was in the bathroom, Logan moved to the gun safe in his bedroom. He spun the dial. Click, click, click. The heavy door swung open. He bypassed the hunting rifle and reached for the pistol, a Sig Sauer P226. He checked the mag. Full. He moved to the window, staying in the shadows, and peered out through the blinds. The glint was gone, but the feeling of being hunted, a sensation that prickled the hairs on the back of his neck, remained. Ellie hadn't just been neglected, Logan realized as he watched the darkening tree line. She was being tracked. The "no one wants me" girl was wrong. Someone did want her, and they weren't sending social workers. Logan racked the slide of his pistol. "Not on my watch," he growled. The morning sun didn't bring relief. It only illuminated the danger. Logan stood at the edge of the tree line, coffee mug in hand, looking down at the soft earth near the oak tree. The ground was damp from the morning dew, and the evidence was unmistakable. A boot print. It wasn't a hiking boot or a hunter's wader. Logan recognized the tread pattern immediately. Vibram soles, tactical grip, the kind used by private security contractors or law enforcement. The heel depression suggested the wearer was heavy, likely carrying gear. Professional, Logan thought, his jaw tightening. Someone sent a pro to watch a 7-year-old girl. He scuffed the print out with his own boot, hiding the evidence. He didn't want Ellie to see it. He turned back to the house where Ellie was watching him from the kitchen window, her nose pressed against the glass. He walked inside, locking the door behind him. The atmosphere in the house had shifted. It was no longer a bachelor pad. It was a forward operating base. "Ellie," Logan said, keeping his voice light, "we're going to play a game today. It's called Turtle." Ellie looked up from her bowl of oatmeal, skeptical. "In the Navy," Logan explained, sitting across from her, "we had to learn how to be safe when things got loud or scary. Do you know what a turtle does when it senses danger?" Ellie tucked her chin into her chest, mimicking a shell. "Exactly." Logan smiled. It was a genuine smile this time. "But turtles need a good shell. Come with me." He led her to the master bedroom. Inside his walk-in closet, there was a trap door in the floor that led to a small reinforced storm cellar. It was meant for tornadoes, but Logan had retrofitted it as a panic room years ago for his own PTSD episodes. A place of absolute silence. He opened it. "This is the shell. If I ever say the code word turtle, you run here, you climb down, and you lock this bolt from the inside. You don't open it for anyone, not even if they say they are me. You only open it if I say the all-clear password." Ellie looked into the dark space. It was scary. "I put a flashlight down there," Logan said, "and a beanbag chair, and—" He paused. "I put a box of Pop-Tarts." Ellie's eyes lit up. Pop-Tarts were a luxury Mrs. Gable had rarely allowed. "What is the password?" Ellie whispered. Logan thought for a moment. "Blue sky. If I say blue sky, the storm is over. Can you remember that?" "Blue sky," she repeated. "Good." The rest of the day was spent securing the perimeter. Logan didn't have high-tech surveillance gear. He had disconnected from the grid years ago, but he had old-school skills. He strung fishing line through the brush at ankle height, attached to small hidden bells on the porch. Low-tech tripwires. He cleared sight lines, trimming back bushes that could provide cover for an approaching enemy. Ellie followed him around, handing him tools. She didn't ask why they were doing this. In her world, preparing for danger was more normal than preparing for a birthday party. As the sun began to dip, casting long shadows across the yard, Logan noticed Ellie shaking. Her breathing was shallow, rapid. A panic attack. The stress of the game and the tension in the air were getting to her. Logan stopped what he was doing. He knelt in the grass, dirty hands resting on his knees. "Ellie, look at me." She couldn't. She was gasping for air. "Tactical breathing," Logan commanded softly. "Listen to my voice. In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. He demonstrated, inhaling deeply through his nose. Ellie tried to mimic him. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let it out. 1, 2, 3, 4. They sat there in the grass for 10 minutes, just breathing. It was a simple technique, one used by snipers to lower their heart rate before a shot, but for Ellie, it was a lifeline. "You're not just a little girl, Ellie," Logan said quietly, wiping a smudge of dirt from her cheek. "You're a survivor, and survivors adapt." For the first time, Ellie reached out and grabbed his pinky finger with her small hand. She squeezed it tight. "Safe?" she asked. I promise, Logan lied. He couldn't promise safety. No one could. But he could promise a fight. I won't let them take you. That night, after Ellie had fallen asleep, with the closet door open and the hallway light on, Logan retreated to his study. He couldn't call the police. The police would ask questions, look at his medical records, see PTSD and paranoid, and they would take Ellie away. They would put her back in the system, right where the wolves could get her. He had to solve this himself. He pulled out the piece of paper where he had copied the symbol Ellie drew. A circle with a cross inside, but the crossbars were slightly offset, looking almost like a twisted window pane. He took a photo of it with his burner phone and sent it to a number he hadn't used in 3 years. No text, just the image. He waited. While he waited, he opened the bag of treasures Ellie had brought. He felt guilty snooping, but he needed intel. He poured the contents onto his desk. The headless doll, a smooth gray stone, a half-used stick of chapstick, and a crumpled notebook. Logan opened the notebook. It was filled with drawings, but they weren't the drawings of a 7-year-old. They were maps, detailed, top-down perspectives of rooms, a cafeteria with 6 tables, a dormitory with 12 beds, a basement with a heavy door. Ellie had a gift, spatial awareness. She had mapped out wherever she had been held before she was found on the highway. On the last page there was a drawing of a man. He was tall, wearing a suit, but instead of a face, Ellie had drawn a swirling black vortex, and in his hand he held a leash. At the end of the leash was a girl. Logan felt a surge of nausea. This wasn't just neglect. This was systematic abuse. His phone buzzed. A single text message from the contact, Vance, an ex-intelligence analyst who owed Logan his life after a botched extraction in Yemen. Vance, where did you get this? Logan typed back. Found it. Does it have a name? The response took 3 minutes. 3 long minutes of silence in the farmhouse. Vance. It's called the Shepherd's Gate. Officially, it was a religious reform school for troubled youth in the 90s, shut down by the feds in 2015 for fraud and human rights violations. But the leadership vanished. Rumor has it they went underground. Private funding. They specialize in reprogramming children for high-end clients. Servants. Sleepers. If you see this symbol, run. They don't leave loose ends. Logan stared at the screen. Reprogramming. That explained the silence. The discipline. The fear of food. They weren't just abusing her. They were training her. And she had escaped. Loose ends, Logan whispered. Ellie was a loose end. She was proof of their operation. They didn't want to adopt her. They wanted to erase her. He looked at the drawing of the faceless man again. The shepherd. A floorboard creaked in the hallway. Logan spun around, pistol in hand, before he even registered the movement. Ellie was standing there, holding her headless doll. She looked at the gun, then at Logan's face. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. Is the shepherd here? She asked. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion. Logan lowered the gun slowly, engaging the safety with a click. No, he said firmly. But I know who he is now, and knowing the enemy is half the battle. He walked over and picked her up. She was light, too light. Ellie, tell me about the map, he said, carrying her back to her room. The place with the heavy door. The quiet room, she whispered into his shoulder. You go there when you are bad, when you remember your name. Logan's blood ran cold. When you remember your name, they were trying to strip her identity. You're Ellie, Logan said fiercely. That is your name, and this is your house. He says I am number 7, she mumbled. Sleep overtaking her. Not anymore. Logan sat in the chair by her bed until she was deep asleep. He knew what he had to do. He couldn't just defend. He had to go on the offensive. But first he had to survive the night, because outside the wind chimes on the porch, the ones he hadn't touched, began to sway. There was no wind. The clock on the microwave read 02:14. Logan was in the kitchen, lights off, drinking water. He hadn't slept. His internal alarm was ringing. Clink. A tiny sound. The fishing line on the east side of the porch. A small bell he had hidden behind a planter had just been disturbed. Logan set his glass down soundlessly. He moved. He didn't go to the window. That's what an amateur would do, presenting a silhouette to a shooter outside. He dropped to the floor and crawled to the side of the door frame, listening. The gravel crunch was soft, rhythmic. 2 people, moving in tandem. They weren't storming the house. They were testing it, checking the locks, peeking in the windows, a soft probe to gauge the target's defenses. Logan had a choice. He could call 911. The sheriff was 30 minutes away. By the time they arrived, these men would be gone, or Logan and Ellie would be dead. Or he could send a message. He chose the message. He crept to the back door, the mudroom entrance. He unlocked it silently. He knew the layout of his own yard in the pitch black better than anyone. He slipped outside. The night air was cold. The rain had started, a light drizzle that masked the sound of his footsteps. He circled around the side of the house, moving through the wet grass like a ghost. He saw them. 2 figures dressed in dark rain gear were standing by the living room window, shining a low lumen red light through the glass. They were looking for her. Logan approached the rear man. He didn't use a gun. A gunshot would wake Ellie and alert the neighbors miles away. He needed quiet violence. He struck. Logan wrapped his arm around the rear man's neck in a sleeper hold, dragging him backward into the darkness of the oak tree. The man thrashed, kicking out, but Logan was iron. He squeezed the carotid artery. 5 seconds. The man went limp. Logan lowered him to the ground and zip-tied his hands and feet with plastic flex cuffs he had in his pocket. The second man, realizing his partner was gone, turned around. "Marco," he hissed. Logan stepped out of the shadows, 10 feet away. He held his pistol now, leveled at the man's chest. "Wrong house," Logan growled. The sound was guttural, terrifying. The man froze. He saw the laser sight dancing on his sternum. He saw the size of Logan. He made a calculation. "We just want the girl," the man said, his voice surprisingly calm. "She's property of the Institute. You have stolen goods, Mr. Reeve." "She's a child," Logan said, "and she's my daughter." "Paperwork can be forged," the man sneered. "The shepherd wants her back. She's special. You have no idea what she can do." "I know she can draw," Logan said. "And I know she can hide. Now you have 3 seconds to leave my property before I stop being a concerned father and start being a Navy SEAL." 1. The man took a step back. 2. The man raised his hands. "This isn't over. You can't fight an ideology, Reeve. I've fought worse." The man turned and sprinted toward the woods. Logan didn't shoot. He let him go. He needed the man to report back. He needed them to know that this wasn't an easy target, that the goods were guarded by a wolf. Logan looked down at the unconscious man at his feet. He frisked him. No ID, just a knife, an encrypted radio, and a photo of Ellie. On the back of the photo, written in elegant cursive, "Retrieval Priority Alpha." Logan dragged the unconscious man to the edge of the driveway, leaving him there for his partner to collect. He wasn't going to hold a prisoner. That would bring the law, and the law couldn't help him yet. He went back inside, locking the door, checking the seals. He walked to Ellie's room. She was still asleep, clutching the doll. Logan sat on the floor, his back against her door. His hands were shaking slightly, not from fear but from the adrenaline dump. They knew who he was. They knew where he lived. The perimeter had been breached. The farmhouse was no longer safe. "We have to move," Logan whispered to the darkness. "We have to go on the run. But where do you go when the enemy is a ghost?" And what exactly was Ellie special for? The man had said, "You have no idea what she can do." Logan looked at the map she had drawn. The detail. The precision. Suddenly, a thought struck him. It wasn't just a memory. He went back to his study and looked at the map again. He compared it to Google Maps on his phone, searching the area the intelligence contact had mentioned. The layout Ellie drew didn't match the old school buildings. It matched the ventilation systems, the security grids. She hadn't just been a prisoner. She had been used. They used her to crawl into places adults couldn't go, Logan realized with horror. They used small children for theft, espionage. The truth was far worse than he imagined. And now they needed their best asset back. Logan began to pack a bag. The quiet life was over. The war had just begun. The decision to leave was made in seconds, but the execution took 20 minutes. In the world of special operations, speed is life, but haste is death. Logan moved with a calculated frenzy. He woke Ellie gently. "Code blue sky," he whispered, though the sky was pitch black. "We're going on a trip." Ellie didn't ask questions. She had been moved in the middle of the night before. Usually, it meant she was in trouble. She sat up, clutching the headless doll, her eyes wide and adjusting to the flashlight beam. "Put these on," Logan said, tossing her a pair of dark cargo pants and a thick hoodie he had bought. "Shoes on, double knots." While she dressed, Logan swept the house. He wasn't just packing, he was sanitizing. He took the hard drive from his computer. He took the physical files. He wiped the surfaces they had touched recently with a bleach solution, not to kill germs, but to kill DNA evidence that might be used to track exactly who had been there. It was overkill, perhaps, but Logan wasn't taking chances. They went out the back door, bypassing the SUV parked in the driveway. "Aren't we taking the car?" Ellie asked, her voice trembling in the cold mist. "The car is a beacon," Logan explained, hoisting his large tactical rucksack onto one shoulder and picking Ellie up with the other arm. "They know the license plate. They know the tire treads. We walk." They hiked 3 miles through the dense woods. It was a grueling trek. Brambles tore at their clothes, and the ground was slick with mud. Logan moved steadily, his breathing controlled, carrying Ellie whenever her small legs grew tired. He used the darkness as cover, navigating by memory and the faint silhouette of the tree line. They emerged onto a secondary road, a strip of asphalt that cut through the farmland. Logan led them to a cluster of self-storage units about a mile down the road. He punched a code into the keypad. The gate groaned open. Inside Unit 42, under a dusty tarp, sat a nondescript beige 2008 Honda sedan. It was the kind of car you would see in a parking lot and instantly forget. It had dents. The paint was peeling. "This," Logan said, pulling the tarp off, "is a ghost." "It's ugly," Ellie noted, wrinkling her nose. Logan chuckled, a rare sound. "That's the point. It's the gray man theory. If you look like a threat, people notice you. If you look like a hero, people notice you. But if you look like nothing, you become invisible." He checked the tires, the oil, and the stash of cash hidden in the spare tire well. He had prepped this car years ago for a doomsday scenario he hoped would never come. They hit the road. Logan avoided the interstates, sticking to back roads that wound through the Appalachian foothills. He checked his rearview mirror constantly, performing cleaning turns. 3 right turns in a row, to ensure no one was tailing them. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in bruises of purple and orange, Ellie spoke up from the back seat. "Why do they want me?" The question hung in the stale air of the car. Logan looked at her in the mirror. She wasn't crying. She was angry. "Because you're valuable, Ellie," Logan said carefully, "but not in the way they think. They think you're a tool, a key to open doors." "I fit in the vents," she said softly. "The vents are small. The adults are too big. I go in, I take the papers, I come out." Logan gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. Child labor, he thought. Burglary, espionage. It was brilliant in its evil simplicity. Who suspects a 7-year-old girl of corporate espionage? "I saw the bad list," Ellie continued, staring out the window. "The man with the red tie, he had a list of names on his computer. I wasn't supposed to look, but I looked. I remembered them." Logan's heart skipped a beat. Photographic memory. "You remember the names?" Logan asked. "Yes. And the numbers next to them. All of them?" "Yes." Logan exhaled slowly. That was it. She wasn't just a thief, she was a walking hard drive. She had seen a ledger. Bribes, hits, accounts. Something that could bring down the entire Shepherd network. That's why they hadn't killed her. They needed to extract the information first. "Ellie," Logan said, his voice serious, "you are the most dangerous person in this car, and that means I have to work twice as hard to keep you safe." They drove for 6 hours, crossing state lines until they reached a grimy motel on the outskirts of Baltimore. The sign buzzed with a dying neon M, leaving it to read "Hotel." Logan paid cash for a room at the back. He swept the room for bugs, hidden microphones or cameras, using a small RF detector he had in his bag. It was clean. "Stay away from the window," Logan commanded, He closed the heavy, smoke-stained curtains. He sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out a burner phone. He needed to call Vance again. He needed a safe house, somewhere with heavy doors and no questions asked. But as he looked at Ellie, something nagged at him. The man in the yard last night, he had found them too easily. Logan's farm was off the grid. No address listed online. No digital footprint. How did they find the exact location within 2 weeks? Ellie, Logan said, a sick feeling rising in his gut. Bring me your doll. Ellie clutched the headless plastic doll to her chest. No. She's mine. I know, sweetie. I just want to check her. Maybe she needs a checkup. Ellie hesitated. She loved that doll. It was the only thing that had been with her through the foster homes, the school, and the highway. But she trusted Logan. She handed it over. Logan examined it. It was cheap, hollow plastic. He squeezed the torso. It felt normal. He checked the legs. Normal. Then he checked the head, or where the head used to be. The neck opening was jagged. He shined his flashlight inside the hollow body of the doll. There, lodged deep in the plastic foot of the doll, stuck in a glob of old glue, was a small black disc. A passive RFID tracker. High range, military grade. Logan felt like throwing up. They had tagged her. They had let her escape, or be found, knowing that wherever she went, she would lead them to a new location, or they could retrieve her whenever they wanted. She was catch and release prey. He looked at Ellie. She was watching him with wide, fearful eyes. She saw the dark look on his face. Is she sick? Ellie whispered. Logan took a deep breath. He couldn't lie to her. Trust was the only currency they had. Ellie, the bad men. They put something inside your doll. A beacon, so they could follow us. Ellie's face crumbled. She snatched the doll back. No, you can't take her. I have to take the bad thing out, Logan said gently, or they will find us tonight. They'll find us anyway, she cried, the first time she had raised her voice. He always finds me. The shepherd sees everything. She was spiraling. The trauma was taking over. Logan moved off the bed and sat on the floor, lowering himself to her level. Ellie, look at me. She was sobbing now, dry, hacking sobs. The shepherd is just a man, Logan said firmly. He is flesh and bone. He bleeds, and he doesn't know everything. He didn't know you would find me. He held out his hand. Give me the doll. We'll perform surgery. We'll save the doll, but we have to kill the bug. Ellie sniffled. She looked at the doll, then at Logan. Slowly, she handed it over. Logan took his pocket knife. With surgical precision, he cut a small flap in the doll's foot, reached in with tweezers from his first aid kit, and pulled out the black disc. He placed the disc on the floor. Say goodbye to the shepherd, Logan said. He smashed the disc with the heel of his heavy boot. It crunched satisfyingly. Now, Logan said, taping the doll's foot back up with a small band-aid. She's clean. She's safe. Ellie took the doll back, hugging it so tight her knuckles turned white. Thank you. We're not done, Logan said, standing up and pacing the room. They know we're in this area. The signal just died. That gives us a head start, but not a big one. They'll triangulate the last known position. He grabbed his gear. We have to move again, but this time we're not running away. We're going to meet a friend. He dialed Vance. Vance, it's me. The package is hot. I need a meet. Now. The docks. Vance's voice crackled. Warehouse 4 on the South Pier. Midnight. I can get you a boat out of the country. We'll be there. Logan hung up. He didn't like it. The docks were a trap. One way in, one way out. But they were out of options. The Baltimore docks were a graveyard of rusted metal and shipping containers. The fog was rolling in off the water, thick and smelling of salt and diesel. Logan parked the gray Honda 3 blocks away. He checked his weapon. The Sig Sauer was clean, a round in the chamber. He also had a small backup pistol, a Ruger LCP, which he handed to Ellie. I don't want to touch it, she said, recoiling. You don't have to shoot it, Logan said intensely. But if I go down, and you have to run, you take this. It's loud. It makes people duck. You use it to make noise and get away. Understand? She nodded, slipping the small gun into the deep pocket of her hoodie. It weighed her down, a physical reminder of the world she lived in. They moved through the shadows of the shipping containers. The silence was heavy. Warehouse 4 loomed ahead, a massive corrugated metal beast. A single light bulb flickered above the side door. "Stay close," Logan signaled. They entered. The warehouse was vast, filled with crates. In the center, under a hanging work light, stood a man. Vance. He looked nervous. He was checking his watch. He was sweating, despite the cold. Logan stopped 20 feet away, keeping Ellie behind a stack of pallets. "Vance!" Logan called out. Vance jumped. "Logan, Jesus, you're quiet." "Where's the boat?" Logan asked, scanning the catwalks above. His instincts were screaming. "Ambush." "It's coming. 10 minutes," Vance said, forcing a smile. "Is that the girl? She's smaller than I thought." "Why are you sweating, Vance?" Logan asked, his hand drifting to his holster. "It's humid," Vance lied. "It's 40 degrees," Logan countered. Vance's face fell. "Logan, listen. They have my wife. They have Sarah. I didn't have a choice." Click. High-intensity floodlights snapped on from the rafters, blinding Logan. "Contact front!" Logan yelled, shoving Ellie down behind the pallets just as the first shots rang out. Crack-thwack. Bullets chewed into the wood of the pallet, sending splinters flying. Logan returned fire, blindly aiming at the lights. He shattered one, creating a pocket of shadow. "Move! Go right!" Logan roared. He grabbed Ellie and they sprinted down an aisle of containers. Bullets sparked off the concrete floor at their heels. This wasn't a capture mission anymore. The Shepherd had authorized lethal force. They dove behind a steel dumpster. Logan was panting. He checked Ellie. She was curled in a ball, hands over her ears. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm sorry I looked at the list." "Not your fault," Logan shouted over the gunfire. He peeked out, 4 shooters moving in. Tactical formation. They were flanking. "Ellie, listen to me!" Logan grabbed her shoulders. "I need your eyes. You see that vent up there?" He pointed to a small, rusted grate about 10 feet up the wall, accessible by climbing the dumpster. "I can't." "You have to. It leads to the office. I need you to unlock the back loading bay door. It's the only way out. The switch is green. Can you do that?" Ellie looked at the vent. It was small, dark, just like the places the bad men made her go. "I don't want to be the mouse anymore," she whispered. "You're not a mouse," Logan said, staring into her eyes with intense conviction. "You're a teammate. You're my backup. Go." He boosted her up. Ellie scrambled onto the dumpster. She reached the vent. She hesitated. Below her, Logan stepped out of cover, firing 2 controlled shots to suppress the approaching gunmen. He was drawing their fire to give her time. "Reeve, give it up," a voice echoed. "There's nowhere to go." Ellie looked down. She saw Logan, the invincible giant. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. He looked mortal. If she didn't move, he would die. Ellie kicked the grate open. She shimmied inside. The dust choked her, but she didn't cough. She crawled. Left, right, straight. She mapped the tunnel in her head instantly. She dropped into the office. It was empty. She saw the control panel. A big green button. Loading dock open. She slammed her hand onto it. A massive mechanical clank echoed through the warehouse. The giant rear bay doors began to roll up, revealing the dark harbor water and a small speedboat tied to the pier. Logan heard the sound. "That's my girl," he grunted. He fired a suppressing volley, forcing the mercenaries to duck, and sprinted toward the office door. Ellie burst out of the office, running toward him. "Jump!" Logan yelled. He scooped her up on the run, ignoring the burning sensation in his shoulder where a bullet had grazed him. They hit the edge of the pier and leaped. They landed hard in the boat. Logan scrambled to the console, keyed the ignition. The engine roared to life. Bullets splashed into the water around them. Logan gunned the throttle. The boat surged forward, carving a white wake into the black water. They sped away into the fog, leaving the chaos of the warehouse behind. Logan slumped against the seat, steering with one hand. He looked at Ellie. She was covered in soot, her dress torn, but she was sitting upright. She wasn't hiding. "You did good, Ellie," Logan wheezed. "You saved us." Ellie looked at her hands. They were dirty, but they were steady. "I opened the door," she said. "Yeah, you did." Logan looked at the horizon. They had escaped the trap, but they were adrift. Vance was compromised. The doll was gone. They had no allies, and Logan was bleeding. "Ellie," Logan said, his voice getting softer. "Take the wheel. Keep it straight." "I don't know how to drive." "Just keep it pointed at the moon," Logan whispered. His head lolled back. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the shock of the wound was setting in. Ellie grabbed the wheel. She looked at the moon. She looked at Logan, who was closing his eyes. She was alone again. But this time she wasn't waiting for someone to want her. She had a job to do. She steered the boat into the dark. The ocean was a vast, terrifying void, but Ellie didn't look at the water. She looked at the compass. North. Logan had told her once while pointing at a map on his wall, "If you ever get lost, go north. The cold wakes you up." It was a joke then. It wasn't a joke now. Ellie stood on a crate to reach the wheel. The speedboat bounced violently over the chop, spray stinging her face. Behind her, Logan lay on the deck, his breathing ragged. The bullet had hit his shoulder, but he had lost blood. Too much blood. "Logan!" she called out over the roar of the engine. He didn't answer. Ellie felt the panic rising, that old, familiar monster that told her to curl up in a ball and hide. "The closet is safe," the monster whispered. "Under the bed is safe." But Logan wouldn't fit under a bed. And if she hid now, the men with the red lights would come. She looked at Logan's arm. The sleeve of his jacket was dark and wet. She remembered the turtle game. She remembered the breathing. In for 4. Out for 4. She let go of the wheel for a second, letting the boat drift. She scrambled to the first aid kit, bolted to the bulkhead. It was a red box with a white cross. She opened it. Inside were bandages, scissors, and a black strap with a rod, a tourniquet. She had seen Logan practice with it on his leg. "High and tight," he had said. "Twist until it hurts." Ellie crawled to Logan. She whimpered when she touched the blood, but she didn't stop. She slid the strap over his arm, high up near the armpit, above the wound. She pulled it tight with all her strength. She twisted the rod. Logan groaned, his eyes fluttering open. He looked at her, hazy and confused. "Ellie?" he rasped. "I'm fixing it," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm stopping the red." Logan tried to sit up, but failed. He looked at the tourniquet. It was messy, but it was tight. The bleeding had slowed. "Good job," he whispered, his voice sounding like gravel grinding together. "You're a medic now." "Where do I go?" Ellie asked, tears streaming down her face mixed with salt spray. Logan pointed weakly to the GPS screen on the dashboard. He tapped a saved waypoint named Echo Point. "The lighthouse," Logan said. "Old safe house. No cameras. Go there." He passed out again. Ellie climbed back to the wheel. She wiped her eyes. She wasn't just number 7 anymore. She wasn't just the girl nobody wanted. She was the captain. She turned the wheel. The boat banked hard, cutting through the waves, heading toward the distant blinking light of safety. Chapter 11. The Weapon of Truth. Echo Point was a desolate strip of rocky coastline with an automated lighthouse and a small, abandoned keeper's cottage. Ellie beached the boat on the sand, the hull grinding loudly against the stones. It took her 20 minutes to wake Logan up and help him stumble out of the boat. He was heavy, dead weight, but adrenaline gave Ellie strength she didn't know she had. They made it into the cottage. It was dusty, smelling of mold and old wood, but it had heavy shutters and a fireplace. Logan collapsed onto a dusty mattress in the corner. He was pale. He needed a hospital, but a hospital meant the system, and the system meant the shepherd. "Phone," Logan murmured, patting his pocket. He pulled out the waterproof satellite phone. The battery was at 12%. "Ellie," Logan said, lucid for a moment. "They are coming. They tracked the boat's engine signature. We have maybe an hour." Ellie froze. "We have to run." "I can't run," Logan said. He looked at his leg, then at her. "You have to run. Into the woods. Hide until the police come." "No!" Ellie stomped her foot. "No one leaves." Logan smiled sadly. "I'm not leaving you, kid. My body just quit on me. Use the list," Ellie said suddenly. Logan looked at her. "What?" "The list," Ellie said, tapping her temple. "The bad list. The names. The bank numbers. The shepherd is afraid of the list. Logan stared at her. The fog in his brain cleared. She was right. The shepherd wasn't chasing them because he loved Ellie. He was chasing them because Ellie was a liability. She was a walking evidence locker. You remember them? Logan asked. Right now? Yes. Logan handed her the satellite phone. Do you know who to call? The police? No, Logan said. The police can be bought. We call the news. We call the FBI. We call everyone. He dialed a number, the direct line to the FBI Cybercrimes Division, a number Vance had given him years ago for emergencies. Speakerphone, Logan said. The line rang. A voice answered. Federal Bureau of Investigation. This line is recorded. My name is Logan Reeve, Logan said, gritting his teeth against the pain. I am a retired Navy SEAL. I have a witness here who has intelligence regarding the Shepherd Syndicate, human trafficking, espionage, money laundering. Sir, this is a restricted line, the agent said, skeptical. If this is a prank... Ellie. Logan nodded at her. Tell them. Ellie leaned over the phone. She closed her eyes. She pictured the computer screen she had seen in the office with the red tie man. Senator Davidson, Ellie recited clearly. Account number 77-4 Bravo Zurich. Deposit $2 million. Date, May 4th. The line went silent. Judge Calloway, Ellie continued. Account 99X Ray Kamen. Deposit $500,000. 4. The quiet verdict. She kept going. She recited names of powerful men, offshore accounts, and dates of illegal transfers. She recited the location of the school hidden under a shell corporation. On the other end of the line, the skepticism vanished. Panic and frantic typing could be heard. Sir, the agent's voice was now sharp, urgent. Keep talking. We are tracing this call. Do not hang up. We are deploying a task force. You better hurry, Logan said, because they're almost here. The battery on the satellite phone beeped. 2%. Send the cavalry, Logan said. The phone died. The room fell silent. Did we win? Ellie asked. Logan reached out and took her hand. We just lit a flare the size of the sun, Ellie. If we go down now, we take them all with us. Outside, the sound of a helicopter rotor thumped in the distance. Chapter 12. The Stand. It wasn't the FBI. Not yet. The helicopter was black, unmarked. It hovered over the beach, kicking up sand. 2 men rappelled down. Then 2 more. They approached the cottage. Logan checked his pistol. 2 rounds left. He checked the backup piece he gave Ellie. Ellie, Logan said, get behind the chimney. Don't come out. I'm staying, she said. She sat next to him, holding her knees. I'm the witness. The door to the cottage was kicked open. The man in the doorway wore a tactical vest and a high-end gas mask. He held a suppressed rifle. Behind him, a man in a suit stepped in. The shepherd. He was an older man, distinguished, with silver hair. He looked like a grandfather, which made him terrifying. Mr. Reeve, the shepherd said, his voice smooth. You've caused quite a mess. And number 7, look at you, filthy. Her name is Ellie, Logan said, raising his pistol. The tactical team aimed their rifles at Logan. A stalemate. Put the gun down, Logan, the shepherd said. You're bleeding out. You have nothing. Give us the girl, and I will let you die quickly. She's not going with you, Logan said. She has property of the syndicate in her head, the shepherd snarled, losing his composure. She needs to be wiped. Too late, Ellie said. Her voice was small, but it cut through the room. The shepherd looked at her. What did you say? I told, Ellie said. I told the phone, the FBI, the news. I told them about the Zurich account, and the judge. The shepherd's face went pale. He tapped his earpiece. Status? Monitor the channels. A voice crackled in his ear, loud enough for Logan to hear. Sir, it's everywhere. CNN just broke in. The Bureau is raiding the Virginia facility. Accounts are frozen. We are burned. Repeat, we are burned. The shepherd stared at the little girl. The girl he had dismissed as a tool, a broken thing. You little. He raised his hand, stepping forward in a rage. Logan didn't hesitate. He didn't have the strength to stand, but he had the strength to pull a trigger. Bang. The shot hit the shepherd in the leg. He crumbled to the ground, screaming. The tactical team hesitated. Their paymaster was down and their cover was blown. FBI, drop your weapons! The roar came from outside, voices magnified by bullhorns. Blue and red lights flashed through the windows, washing over the walls. The cavalry had arrived. The tactical team looked at each other, looked at the screaming shepherd, and dropped their rifles. They were mercenaries. They didn't die for lost causes. Logan let the gun slip from his fingers. He slumped back against the wall, his vision tunneling. He felt a small hand on his face. "Stay," Ellie commanded. "Stay, Logan." "I'm tired, Ellie," he whispered. "I'm just gonna rest my eyes." "No," she shook him. "Blue sky. The password is blue sky." The last thing Logan saw was Ellie's face, fierce and loving, and the blurry shapes of paramedics rushing through the door. Epilogue. The promise kept 6 months later. The courtroom was quiet. The judge, a stern woman with kind eyes, looked over the paperwork. "Mr. Reeve," the judge said, "the report from social services is unconventional. You are a single father with a history of combat trauma. You live in a rural area." Logan stood up. He was wearing a suit that fit better now. He had gained his weight back. His shoulder was stiff, but it worked. "Yes, Your Honor." "However," the judge continued, smiling, "the report also says that the child, Eleanor Reeve, is thriving. Top of her class in math, art prizes, and, according to her therapist, loved beyond measure." The judge looked down at Ellie. She was wearing a yellow dress. Her hair was braided. She wasn't hiding under the table. She was sitting in the chair, her feet swinging. "Eleanor," the judge asked, "is this where you want to be?" Ellie looked at Logan. She thought about the silent house, the game of turtle, the boat in the storm, the man who stood between her and the darkness even when he was bleeding. "He wanted me," Ellie said, her voice clear and strong. "When no one else did." The judge nodded. "Then it is ordered. Adoption finalized." The gavel banged, a sound of finality, a sound of a new beginning. They walked out of the courthouse into the bright spring sunshine. Logan took a deep breath. The air smelled sweet. "So," Logan said, loosening his tie. "Official, you're stuck with me." "I know," Ellie said. She reached into her small backpack and pulled out a drawing. She handed it to him. It was a picture of the farmhouse, but it wasn't empty anymore. She had drawn flowers in the garden. She had drawn a swing set. And on the porch, she had drawn 2 figures, a giant man and a little girl holding his hand. Underneath, in messy crayon, she had written, "Home." Logan felt that familiar sting in his eyes, but he didn't wipe it away this time. He folded the drawing carefully and put it in his pocket, right next to his heart. "What do you want to do now, Ellie?" Logan asked. "We can get ice cream. We can go to the park." Ellie looked up at him, her eyes shining with mischief and intelligence. "I want to take a self-defense class," she said seriously. Logan threw his head back and laughed, a loud booming sound that made passers-by smile. "Deal," he said, "but first, ice cream." They walked down the steps, hand in hand. 2 broken pieces that, when fitted together, made something unbreakable,